Hello everybody and welcome to the 4th edition of the Festival of Romany Film Ake Dikhea. I hope that you've been enjoying the selection of films that have been on show and discussions that have been taking place over the last 5 days. Unfortunately, this is going to be the last Q&A of this festival, but we hope that you stay around and join us at 9 p.m. for our awards ceremony, where we'll be presenting our awards for Audience Choice and Best Feature and Best Short. So I'm going to be your host for this Q&A. My name's Lisa Smith and I had the pleasure of being a member of this year's jury for the Romany Film Festival. I'm also a creative producer, originally from the UK, but currently based in Berlin. And we are live streaming direct to you from the legendary club SO36. So first of all, I'd like to give a warm welcome to our 4 directors that we have for this session. First of all, I'd like to introduce Piotr Goldstein in person. We're so happy that we can have you here.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Okay. Piotr is the co-director of Active Citizen. And then via Zoom, we have got Jan Lorenz, who's joining us, who is also the co-director of the Serbian film Active Citizen. We also have Julie Colman joining us, who is director of the British film Memories of Appleby Fair. And of course, Laurie Rees, who is the director of the Norwegian film Roza's Song. So good to have you here. Can I ask you guys where you're based joining us on Zoom?
Sure. I'm currently in Wrocław, southwest Poland, or Breslau in the German nomenclature.
I'm in Hereford, which is a small city to the west of England on the Welsh border.
Yeah, and I'm in Oslo, the capital of Norway.
Lovely. So over the next 15 minutes, we're going to have the opportunity to ask our directors some questions. And you as an audience also have the opportunity, and we'll be monitoring our Facebook and YouTube stream. So please feel free to ask us some questions throughout this 15 minutes. So Piotr and Jan, I'd first like to come to you and talk to you a little bit about the film The Active Citizen. So first of all, I wanted to ask you actually about the title. Because it's not only the title, but at the beginning of the film, you state this as a definition, I think maybe in the first couple of scenes. And I wanted to ask you both, why was it so important for you to frame it in this way so clearly at the beginning?
Yes, so this film is part of a bigger project, which is all about invisible activism. And what we are showing in the film is this type of invisible activism. And because it's invisible, it's so hard to show. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we are trying to guide the spectator a little bit. And we started from this realization that when we talk about activism, we very often talk about people like ourselves, like people who basically can afford to be active in many different ways. We can afford to protest on the streets. We can afford to join charities and NGOs. But what happens when somebody does not have all those opportunities? And does it mean that we, middle-class academics or activists, have created a kind of a definition which is good for us but not for other people?
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well,
and Jan, I'm not sure if you have any comments.
I have little to add to what Piotr has just said. It's very much like an introducing or, in a sense, inviting the audience to think through the film, because the film's structure is very ethnographic, it's sort of very open-ended. I mean, it's a journey throughout the day, but it's basically to kind of draw the viewer's attention to certain things that we think are important. But yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I also wanted to ask, because I noticed that you both worked very collaboratively on this project, and you both co-directed it, edited it, and produced it. And I wanted to ask, was there benefits in it being a two-person team in terms of connecting more with the family, and then being more open and less intimidated in sharing their experiences?
Should I begin? Well, from my perspective, the first thing, the most striking element of because every other film that I've made so far was an individual project, except for some participatory video projects that I've done. But all the films that I've been involved in were one-man projects, many individual film projects. And this time, because we kind of, especially during the filming process, the production process, because we divided our roles, I was able to focus, in a sense, maybe not forget, but to become very focused about certain specific elements of the filmmaking process that I was, in a sense, responsible for. So it was a very, I would say, egalitarian mode of work, in a sense that we did, work very closely together at all stages. But also it was, for me at least, it was an opportunity to actually focus on things which I wouldn't be able to focus on so much if in a sense I had all of this on my head. So I guess this is also a specific experience because I kind of come from a anthropological ethnographic filmmaking tradition where you most of the time work individually. So it was quite an interesting experience in that sense, to work in a collaboration with Piotr.
I shall add that Driton and his family were so welcoming that there was no question of intimidation really here. But at the same time, this was in terms of the work related to the film. It was really crazy project. We filmed everything in a half of one day.
Everything.
Sorry.
Everything.
Yes, we filmed everything in half a day. So yeah, I mean then came many months of editing, but yeah, the filming itself was done in half a day. There was no preparation, there was no staging scenes. What you see on the film is what happened on that day.
That's surprising to me that it was shot in such a small period of time, because it was one of the questions I was actually going to ask you, because I almost felt like we did see this like transition or journey in openness from Driton in terms of the scene where he was with his family in the house at the beginning, and then when he was on the street explaining the situation of why he was in Kosovo and the conflict and how he lost his father, and what life was like before he came to Serbia. And I was going to ask you that actually, yeah, so that's very surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was, and the mere fact that we found it, and it was not also the way you typically do films. We're very lucky that we're entrusted by our universities and by our sponsor to do the film, because we came to Serbia, we did not know what we will be doing. We searched for a couple of weeks to come across Driton. We made many different attempts, and we're extremely lucky to come across him. We're very lucky that he wanted to cooperate with us, and that we met such a wonderful person.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I think for me personally, it did show a very resilient and proud Romani man who was trying to do the best that he could and provide for his family in the situation that he had. And I really like how it was framed in this active citizen, and how we were looking at his form of work as a form of resistance, and how he was actually contributing to the society that he was living in, opposed to the stereotype, I guess. And was this something that was in your mind when you were working on it?
Yes, and actually you asked before about the title, and we have this citizen in the brackets. And this is to show that you can see from the film that Driton is really active, and he does all the things that we would expect from an active citizen, and even more. But at the same time, he's discriminated on every step of his life. So he's giving everything from himself, and at the same time, his citizenship, his role in the society is being attacked from the outside in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'd next like to move on to Julie Colman, director of Memories of Appleby Fair. So Memories of Appleby Fair is a short film that focuses on an event called Appleby Fair and uses still imagery and audio, which is beautiful, based on people's experiences and memories of their time spent at this fair. So Julie, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Appleby Fair and what its significance is to travellers, but also why you decided to focus on this specific event to capture people's feelings.
Well, Appleby Fair in the UK is of huge cultural significance. It happens at the beginning of June each year, and people come from all over the country and sometimes Europe to gather in one place. I believe that this year was only the second ever time in about the last 400 or 500 years the fair has had to be cancelled for some particular reason. And we made the film right in the heart of our strictest lockdown, which is why it's made using still imagery and audio that we were able to gather carefully to try and evoke a feeling of the fair, to offer people some sort of comfort that they weren't going to be travelling there. I think as the world becomes more digital and gypsy and traveller people are forced to stay in one place far more than they ever used to be, people living their life through Facebook, Appleby Fair is the one time of year people can go together and feel that they are in a safe place with safe people. And that's very much the feelings of people from the audio testimonies they sent in. That seemed to be very much how people were feeling.
Mm-hmm. It was really creative in the mix of the still imagery from Natasha Kwambi and the audio, and I felt it was a really creative way of telling a story in a really difficult time. And my second question was going to be about why you chose to focus on the audio and the imagery.
It was partly for logistical reasons, partly because that's how we had to make it to keep people safe at that time, but also any programs and program makers that seem to have made films about Appleby in the past have come from very much outside Gypsy Roma traveller community. The films that I've seen, sympathetic or not, have always been quite sensational and have tried to sort of portray the fair as if it's a wildlife documentary. We really wanted to make sure that we were getting to the heart of what it really means. We wanted to evoke, we wanted to make people feel that they were there. They could feel the noise and the hustle and bustle and almost smell the campfires burning. And I think we had a very short space of time to put it together. In a very short space of time, we wanted to focus on the ballad that had been created for a documentary made a few years ago, to put that at the heart of it. And I'd like to think that we were able to do that.
Thank you so much. I'd next like to move on to Laurie Rees, who is the director of Roza's Song. And Roza is a documentary that features a very strong female protagonist on her journey to create the first ever Norwegian Roma music CD. And it shows some of the obstacles that she faces, but it also gives us an insight into the Norwegian Romani community. So, Laurie, I wanted to ask you, first of all, how you met Roza and how the idea came about to collaborate to bring her story to a wider audience.
Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
I'd like to know how you met Roza and why you decided to collaborate and bring this story to a wider audience, bring her story to a wider audience.
I had been doing a research to a film about the Roma society in Norway for some years, actually. My first meeting with the community was through a school project, and then I continued after school to work to come kind of deeper into the questions and the community, and I was looking for a protagonist, or at that point one or more, for a story from the community, and I wanted to. I had met many very strong and fun and interesting woman there, and which was kind of a opposite to a lot of the media picture of the women of both Roma and other minorities in Norway. And then the like first physical meeting with her was at a adult education kind of center for the Roma in Oslo, where I was hanging around in a bit in my research period, and then she was there one day with some other women, and it was this kind of feeling that okay, this is here it's something here with you, and I think she also got a bit curious on me, and it was that was the beginning of our collaboration. That I think both of us looked at each other and just was a bit curious of each other, and we started to meet and talk about what I wanted to do and what she was doing and thinking.
Thank you. I also noticed that it featured some challenging scenes at some points, both the wedding scene and there was another one. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your process and how you went about deciding on what to include or what not to include in terms of the footage, and if Roza was a part of that.
Some of those scenes are a bit we were thinking and talking a lot about them both in the film crew and in the editing, and it was also agreement with the Roza and also a larger community, the larger community, that we should watch the film together before I screened it, of course. And so I had several screenings for both Roza and her family, and also the larger family, and also the adult education, and so it was quite like open and collaborative process, also coming to what was going to be shown and the final result. And there were some I think for Roza, this I don't know if, because that also is it's also other scenes which is not included, and this is also a part of their lives in a way. So I don't think she for many of the people in the film, I think it was okay. And I also had some talks with some about if we couldn't take away, for instance, the one in the church where a boy had been stabbed, and we talked a bit about it, and then also the guy who had the question if it could be taken away, he said that of course it's also important for showing what she's fighting for and her will. And so I think everybody was quite okay with it being shown.
Thank you. I also noticed that you chose to use some archive footage to highlight the historical political context for Romani and traveller people in Norway. And I wanted to ask you why you made that decision to also, on top of Roza's story, include that historical perspective and grounding for people.
Very good question, and it was a lot of thinking around this as well, because my original wish was to have a contemporary story about Roza and the community and their lives now, and what she aimed for and hoped for, and not a lot of. It's so many things if you go to try to tell the whole story about the Roma people in Norway, that it's that we first didn't want to do that as well, but then it's also a problem that it's a so huge lack of knowledge and information about the Roma in Norway. So when I started coming into this world, I couldn't find any information anywhere, and people in libraries didn't know anything. It's like it's been really, really not illuminated topic at all. So it felt like necessary to just kind of give a little context, because it's not a part of Norway's like official story at all still. So
yeah, I connected with Roza's story when I was watching it, because the Romani travellers in the UK, we live in a very similar way, you know, with the trailers and the ways of being. It was really similar. So from a Romani perspective, to see the Norwegian perspective was interesting. So thank you. I'd next like to come back to Piotr and Jan to ask you if you were what you were working on at the moment and any future projects.
That's a good question, and probably between the two of us we have many different projects. But the project of which this film is a part, about invisible activism, it's ongoing. So hopefully also with Jan we'll be working further on that. And yeah, it's a phenomenon which very much concerns the Romani community, but it also concerns other communities, and other migrant communities. And I would personally very much like to show more of it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, like Piotr said, we're working on we still continue to work together on this project. But apart from this, we're both researchers, so we're both involved in research and film work, I think, at the same time. And I'm continuing my very long-term work on questions of self-transformation, on religiosity, on religious conversion, questions of identity as well. So I'm currently preparing. Actually, at the very moment, I'm preparing a new project. So.
Thank you. And Julie and Laurie, could I also ask if you're working on any current projects at the moment?
Yes, so we're working on another short documentary looking at the Roma women's identity, mainly in the media, and how they're portrayed in film. And then we're at the very early development stages of a longer documentary piece which examines the general perception around traveller Roma gypsy crime perpetrated on and by and involving hate crime and a much more sort of academic approach to that research.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And Laurie, what about you?
Yes, I have been working a bit with developing a documentary about the story about the Roma and the Second World War in Norway, but which is also a very unilluminated part of the Norwegian Holocaust stories. So but it's Poraimos, which is the Roma name. But it's been I have had some considerations about, because it's also some young Roma people here starting to make more films and coming into this field themselves. And sometimes I think maybe it's good if it should come more from inside. So we have been also a bit in collaboration with Romano Care, which is a new cultural center in Oslo, to see if it can be maybe some kind of collaboration in a way, or if they can make and we can give some filmatic support in the start, or I don't know. But I think it's the question of who is making the stories about whom is also interesting to follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to congratulate the four of you on your films, and it's been a pleasure to have them as part of the festival. So thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to our audience who have been watching at home and supporting us. And I hope that you stay tuned and join us at 9 p.m. for our awards ceremony. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.